Hey everyone, this is a video that's hopefully going to be helpful for you with the recent price decreases by Tesla when shopping for a used car or deciding if you should buy a new car, as right now it's very compelling to buy a new vehicle. So if you haven't heard recently, there's been two major things that have happened. A new bill in the United States that is allowing up to $7,500 federal tax credit if you qualify via income and owe that tax liability to be applied to vehicles under a certain price point. Specifically for the Model 3, this means $7,500 if the vehicle is priced at $55,000 or less. So Tesla lowered the price of their models by a lot, their performance and rear-wheel drive. And then if you notice, and actually has been the case for about 6 months, the long range hasn't been for sale for a while, and we do expect that to come back later this year. So right now, when looking at the Model 3, this price went from 47,000 down to 44, and with the $7,500 tax credit, you're paying about 37,000 plus tax for the base model. This is not including any wheel or paint upgrades, as these are now extra charge. Midnight Silver Metallic was $1,000 for many years. It was free last year. Now it's 1,000. The wheels are the same. And then for the price caps, software updates don't count. But generally, this is the lowest price this car has been in many, many years, and it's becoming very attractive. And with the recent increase in used car pricing since COVID, this is going to have a huge hit in the used car market, which has already seen demand go down. So when you're shopping for used cars, while it should be a faster turnaround than, let's say, something like real estate, when the market slows, sellers take a while to lower their price. We're going to start to see prices drastically drop in the used market. So make sure that you, by being aware of this information, are not overpaying for your Model 3. I'm going to be talking about the Model 3 specifically because different years, the Model 3 has gone through several changes that are not inherently obvious unless you're more of a Tesla enthusiast or doing some in-depth research. So hopefully by the end of this video, you know exactly the year you want to buy and things to look out for. So I'll do some things online, and then I'm going to switch over to in my car so you can actually see the differences in the vehicle that you need to look out for when shopping for this car. That way you don't get overcharged and are actually getting the value for your dollar. So right now, something to keep in mind is when you are shopping used for the base model, you should not be paying more than $37,000 for this vehicle. Generally, if you are paying more or seeing higher prices, it's either A, because they haven't lowered their price yet, and you'll see that as I pull up Carvana. These prices are still reflective of the used car prices that we saw before. They've come down a little bit, but they're incredibly overpriced. They may be including other software items that like full self-driving. So that's a $15,000 add-on and will be a factor in the price. But if we assume all other things are standard, no aftermarket items, and just looking at a stock vehicle, you can already tell things like this is incredibly overpriced. I would expect this vehicle, for example, a 2018 long range, which is now more expensive than buying a brand new long range, to include something like full self-driving, because the red paint only adds about $2,000 to the price. You have a white interior that you can see, which adds another $1,000 to the price, but you have the stock rims. It's got 28,000 miles, which means this car is also likely due for a tire change, as these vehicles eat up tires quite quickly. The stock tires run out. I've experienced them close to 30,000 miles, even though they're rated for 45,000 because of a variety of factors, at least in Arizona. But these ones, the tread will be further along than a normal vehicle at 28,000. But 45,000 for this car, while it was reasonable before, long range for the existing inventory with the tax credit and the new pricing, this is more expensive than a brand new one. And this car is a pre-refresh version, and I'll talk about more about what that means soon, and it's really overpriced. For others, the base model, Standard Range Plus, this was a naming convention used pre-refresh and pre-LFP battery. And so that's something that this 2020 is priced more than a brand new Standard Range Plus in Arizona. There's a caveat that we do not have private party sales tax, so that's a factor. However, why pay $40,500 where a brand new car with tax that you'll get in a few weeks will be the exact same price with more range and more newer technology and more functionality, like a power trunk, more insulated glass, new refresh center console, and better insulated vehicle altogether. It just doesn't make sense. So these prices are all incredibly inflated. If you're looking at this, I wouldn't personally pay for this more than like 30,000 for this vehicle, because there's going to be so many cars on the market. It is unfortunate for those who maybe bought in the last few months that you're paid such a premium. However, for older vehicles, and as this company is making, 1.5 to 2 million a year, these prices are going to continue to go down, and this car is probably close to $10,000 overpriced. So apply that towards the other ones, as you should not be paying right now, while Tesla can deliver a vehicle within 30 days to you, more than the MSRP with the tax credit. And even though some buyers don't qualify if you're very, very high income, that shouldn't be a factor in charging more. It's worth very, very little knowing that the tax credit is not going to be technically available in your pocket at least a year from now when you do your taxes. And so that shouldn't be too much of an argument, as most people will wait, since it's such a big advantage to get that tax credit. So as we look at this car, right, so this is $37K for the base Model 3 with after the tax credit, and then for the performance, which was like 60,000 plus, is now only 54 plus the tax credit. You're now looking at 47,000 for the performance vehicle is what you should see about paying. So if you're looking in the used market, you should be paying less than that. Something to keep in mind, or around there in Arizona, since you do get that tax benefit. But these are the things that, if you're not aware, that at least has to be the baseline for any vehicle made in the last year for a Model 3. And then as we start to go back in time to pre-Q4 2021, that's when you have the pre-refresh version. And then you also start to have a different battery if you're looking at the rear-wheel drive. So there's a few big instances as we switch over to the vehicle that I'll point out to you that you need to think about, because not all Model 3s are made the same. So as we switch over to the vehicle, some things to point out as you're looking at cars. All of the Model 3s, all the way dating back to 2017, generally look the same. Back in late 2020, the vehicles did go through what you'll call a refresh, and certain enhancements happened to this car that are worth really considering. So if you're buying a car from mid 2020 and earlier, these are things that you need to look out for. So one is a power trunk. This was not available on vehicles pre-Q4, pre-November 2020, and that's a big convenience. Two is they blacked out the trim, and a lot of people pay for this to be wrapped aftermarket, but that's another indication that this is a pre-refresh version. Is if you see chrome anywhere on the vehicle except for the logos. Granted, I had this done aftermarket, so the logos on the back and the front are chrome even today, but generally they blacked out all the chrome that was existing on the car. So if you see chrome here, that is a older Model 3 that does not have the power trunk. What they also did was update the glass. So road noise was a big issue with this car. I complained about that, my wife complained about that, and they updated to dual pane glass. As you can see, 2 panes of glass. And as if you know, if anyone's upgraded their single pane homes to double pane, it's a huge deal with insulation. For cars, it's road noise. It keeps the car cooler when you want it cool, and hotter when you want it hot, because there's more insulation. The rear still has single pane, so that's okay, but this is what the glass looked like for older Model 3s pre-refresh. So as you're looking at this is a big deal for looking at a vehicle, is making sure you have this, because the road noise on highway speeds is really, really annoying if you don't have that. As we get into the center of the car, this was also changed. So the center console has gone through a big refresh. This is an aftermarket accessory, so ignore that for now. But generally, this center console is much better and less fingerprint resistant in the refresh Model 3s. And then anywhere that there was gloss black was basically replaced by some matte things. Even on the handles, these buttons here, this actually didn't exist on the pre-refresh. This is now matte black and a lot nicer. And then this is debatable if you like it or not, but you'll see this wood accent bleed all the way onto the door, and that was also part of the refresh that was done to the vehicle. Now, other things to look for besides that are, if we look at charging,
is the type of battery pack. So if we think about the long range or the performance, you have the NCA pack, which is the type of battery pack I've done a video on comparing the different battery packs on the long range versus the standard, or what we just call a Model 3 now, because the naming changed. It's just called Model 3 as your base rear wheel drive. Is the battery pack you can only charge to 80 to 90% for daily driving at the most without risking damage to the battery long term. And so to tell, you should be going into the vehicle and seeing, does it say daily, or does it say daily and trip, or does it not say that? If it does not say this, and that means you can go all the way to 100%, and it's an LFP Model 3. The good news is, for simplicity, and that's the current version you can buy today that goes 272 miles for a brand new one, is this was only available on the rear wheel drive. You cannot get an LFP battery for long range or performance. So if you're looking for those vehicles, you cannot buy LFP. The LFP pack is only available for the I like this keep because it was the name for a few years, is the regular Model 3. So when also shopping for the used car, if you look at the charge limit, this is how you can tell what the max range is, because you'll see a listing for Model 3 and it'll say the range is 250 or 260. It basically is showing the EPA rated range at the time of manufacturer. But however, if you're shopping for a car that's years old, the battery has degraded. It's not that anymore. So what you want to do is you touch here from percentage and you can change it to miles, and then you can come into the menu here, go to charging, and then move the slider all the way up. And then you can see what the charge limit is. This car, when I bought it, had a range of 353, and now the max charge at 100% is about 341. So I know that it's degraded not that much, actually. So if you're looking at the old Model 3 rear-wheel drives that had rated ranges of 230 or 240 or 250, chances are this is going to say 210 or 205 or 220, and it's basically just much lower rated range versus buying a brand new vehicle. You're going to get 270, and with my wife's LFP, it just degrades very little. So that's another thing to think about, is what is the range on the vehicle when you're looking at it, and then generally and that should be priced into the vehicle if the battery has degraded more than you expect. I would not buy a vehicle that has degraded really more than 10% over its life. So another thing to think about is the used cars, is the tire tread. So these Michelin tires are actually rated quite well. So these things are actually rated for about 45,000 miles, but EVs, and especially in Arizona, they rip through these tires faster because of the immense heat inside Arizona, and then the torque on these wheels. Generally, to make it simple, is I had to replace the tires on 2 vehicles under 30,000 miles. And I did not drive hard. I don't race these vehicles, but it's because of the intense heat, and these EVs, they are less than the warranted amount. So if you are finding a used car that has around close to 30,000 miles, that tread likely needs to be replaced much sooner. And you can ask the owner, like, when's the last time you replaced the tires? And if they haven't, that should be a factor in your buy price. If you're hovering around the 30 to 40,000 miles, you're going to have to replace these tires, and they're not cheap. But if they hopefully had proper air pressure and they're wearing evenly, you might be able to get a warranty claim and a discount on a new set. So those are some tips about buying the Model 3. Generally, if you're really thinking about this, is LFPs are worth more. And so to check that, you use the slider in the charging, and any car made in like late 2021 till now, the standard Model 3 is LFP. Before that, NCA, and that's my opinion, and because of all the benefits, charging to 100% is the main one, and the longevity of the battery and the safety, is prior to that, you'll have a standard model, has lower range, and you can only charge to 80%, so that needs to be a factor. And then in 2020, in late 2020, the refresh version kicked in with the power trunk, insulated glass, the blacked out trim, the updated center console. Those are items that should be factored into the price. If you don't have that, and it's older, you should be paying less. We even start to see older Model 3s in the 20-something thousands. Honestly, with the new price changes, and then everything else is generally the same. I have other videos, and so do other content creators on some of these items about charging speed and some other factors. But generally, if you're coming from a gas car, no matter what car you choose, it's going to be an amazing new experience for you. I would highly recommend either way just having home charging. It's no fun to supercharge every few days. And other than that, I hope this video helps you when shopping for new versus used. Is likely new is going to be in the cards. If it's used, you should be getting a big discount. And I would only buy a Model 3 from very, very late 2020 till now because of the convenience features that you have. But if you're buying one before and you don't care about those things I mentioned, it should be a lot cheaper. So I hope this helps. Enjoy, and welcome to the Tesla family if you do join. Take care.